What do you do? What do you do for a living? What do I do? It's kind of a hard one to explain. So, my answer is I'm a homicide cop. I've been a cop for the last 23 years, and I've been off on sick leave for just over a year and a half. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, and panic disorder. And it's been a pretty long journey, man. Like, I went through 3 years of panic attacks. So for 3 years, out of 900 mornings, I threw up 870 times. Every single morning, didn't matter where I was. It just happened. It started as a feeling in the middle of my chest and kind of expanded through there into the rest of my extremities, and then I start to sweat and convulse, and then I start to throw up. And sometimes they last for an hour, sometimes they last for 10 hours. That one landed me in the hospital for the day. So I was taking like 17 different medications over a number of years that none of them seemed to help. I'd go and see a psychiatrist, and they would change it up, and they'd put this one in and take this one out and add more of this and substitute this and put this one on top. At one time, I think I was taking 4 different psychiatric medications at one time. And none of them seemed to help. They just seemed to exacerbate my anxiety, my panic, and it made me feel like a dial tone. It just made me kind of just and not really have any joy or any real happiness, no matter what. So there was no influence in my mood. It was just, I felt like Charlie Brown with a rain cloud over my head all the time taking this medication. I had suicidal thoughts constantly. It was horrendous. Like I went through all those different medications and the 6 weeks on and the 6 weeks off, and it was very torturous, man. Like the medications that they threw at me, and I kept going through this and going through this process of trial and error and trial and error. And so in October of last year, about a year ago this time, Karen's dad became aware of what I had been dealing with. And he said to Karen, hey, you know what, there's this place down in Georgia that I could take Jay down to that can likely help him with what he's dealing with. And Karen began to tell me about this, and then she mentioned that it's a Christian place. They talk about the Bible and God. And I was like, Karen, come on, stop. Enough with the God stuff. You know that I don't believe in God. You know that I believe in the Big Bang Theory, and I was watching Neil deGrasse Tyson videos and went down to see him at the Roy Thompson Hall, or the Sony Center, whatever it's called now. And I took my daughter down there. Like, this is what I believed in. I never once picked up the Bible to testify in court. It was, yes, I affirm. And, you know, it was just the life that I lived is what I believed in. And that was it. So, you know what? Enough. Enough with your God stuff. Get away from me. Stop. Enough. I don't want to hear about it anymore, okay? So for the rest of October, the rest of November, 7 more weeks. Every morning, continue to throw up. Nothing changed. Still putting those pills in my body. Nothing changed, man. Still going to therapy, panicking all the time. And then you know what I said to myself? I said, you know what? Enough of this. Enough of this. I'm at my bottom's end. I'm ready to kill myself. What can it hurt? What can it hurt if I go out there and figure out God or whatever he's talking about, man? Like, I've been through the ringer and back. Can't be any worse than what I'm dealing with right now. So I said, you know what? Sign me up. Whatever, man. Let's go. Take me on your journey with God, and we'll see what happens, man. Nothing worse can happen to me than what's happening right now. So, then in November, away we went. Road trip down to Georgia. Me and my father-in-law, Bill. So as my journey continued, we went down, and in the first day of class, I took 2 lorazepams that morning because I was just way over the edge with anxiety. And I remember sitting in that classroom and thinking, God, I got to get out of here. I got to run. I can't be part of this. I got to go. And I forced myself. I said, you know what, where am I going to go? I'm in Georgia. I'm not going to go hide in the forest or anything that. So I sat through it. And the next day I went back and I had to take one lorazepam in the morning and another one later in the afternoon. But I stayed there. And then on Wednesday, that was the day that we were going to get baptized. So on that day, I had to take lorazepam in the morning, another one in the afternoon, and then got baptized.
Baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, to walk in a newness of life, brother. Amen.
So, backing up just a little bit, before I went down to Georgia, I went to see my psychiatrist, and I said to her, hey, you know what, this medication you have me on, 60 milligrams of Paxil and 300 milligrams of Wellbutrin, it's not doing anything positive for me. I'm continuing to throw up and continuing to have panic attacks. Like, is there something else? So she told me to wean myself off of Paxil and then bring in Cymbalta. So when I was at 30 milligrams of Paxil, start bringing in Cymbalta. So that happened to be the Thursday after I was baptized. And I remember getting up, no anxiety for the first time in 3 years. And I remember looking in that mirror. And you know what I did? I smiled at myself. And I hadn't done that in 14 years. I've not looked in that mirror once and been happy with who was in front of me. So I reached into my pill little case there and pulled out the Cymbalta, the Wellbutrin and the Paxil. Took the Wellbutrin and the Paxil, looked at the Cymbalta and said, no, I'm not going to. I'm going to just see. I'm just going to see what happens if I continue to wean myself off the Paxil and the Wellbutrin and don't bring in Cymbalta. I'm going to see. So, finished my time up at the course for the next 2 days, a 5-day course down there, and came back. And I went from a place of such deep anxiety, depression, panic, everything, to now being healed. I had no anxiety, I had no depression, I had no panic attacks, I had no fear. My medication had been reduced and was continuing to be reduced, and as it did, I continued to feel better and better and better. And I ended up in a state of what they called hypomania. So I was super duper happy. Like, think about Robin Williams on one of his escapades or one of his stand-up shows, you know, just full of energy and going and going and going. And on December the 22nd, I had an outpatient appointment with my psychiatrist. So I went in on that day with my wife, my 10-year-old daughter, just because we had her for the day. She wasn't feeling well. And went into the office and I began to explain to the psychiatrist, hey, I feel amazing. You know, I have no more fear. I have no more anxiety, no more depression, no more suicidal thoughts. I have no fear. I feel amazing. You know, I haven't felt this good in like 14 years. I'm not taking the Cymbalta and da-da-da-da. And she's like, you're not taking the Cymbalta? I'm like, yeah, I feel good. Like, I don't need the medication. I feel amazing. Well, you need to take the medication. And I'm like, no, but listen, I feel amazing. Like, this is incredible what's happened to me. Like, don't you understand? Like, God has healed me. God has saved me. Like, I don't need you anymore. Like, this is amazing. And she kept saying, no medication. I'm like, no. And then I said, you know what? Stop. Stop right now and listen to me. I want you to tell me right now, as a medical doctor, as a psychiatrist, how is it possible that I'm sitting here right now, free from anxiety, free from depression, free from panic attacks? I have no fear, and I'm not taking medication. How is that fucking possible? You know what her reaction was? Boop. I'm committing you. I'm committing you under the Mental Health Act for being a danger to me. So there I sat in that room, and down the hall came running 10, 15 security guards. They opened up the door and looked at me, and I'm like, hey, Are you here to get me? Like, it's cool. Like, you don't need to touch me. Like, I'll stand up. Like, whatever you want me to do. Like, whatever. So I got up, walked out of the room, and it was like a harem around me. And being led through the halls of the hospital, this little wee man, surrounded by all these security fellas and ladies. So they took me down to the emergency department, gave my health card, they gave me a bag, gave me a pair of jammies, told me to go and get changed out of my clothes, put my clothes in the bag, put the jammies on, and come back with them. So did that, got rid of everything. Necklace, watch, shoes, socks, everything. I had pants and a shirt. Send me upstairs, and now I'm in the intensive care unit of the psychiatric unit. So the intensive care unit is set up with 9 rooms across the hall, and on one side you can see outside, so you can see a historical building and some trees and a driveway and stuff. On the opposite side is a glass wall, so the nurses can see into your room. Your bed is in the center of the room. There's straps on the bed with big knobs on them that they use to tighten everything down. There's a camera above your head, there's a camera in the corner, and there's a camera over there. Thankfully, I never got strapped down. However, the straps had to remain on the bed. They couldn't take them off. But they gave you a little pad to put over these big knobby things. But it didn't help. You saw this big knob sticking right into your back, and it was the least of my worries, but it was uncomfortable, you know. Within 24 hours, I had another doctor come and see me, a second psychiatrist. And he handed me a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper was a prescription for Latuda. And I said, hey, what's Latuda? And he said, well, you have bipolar and you need to take this. And I said, hold on. What's Latuda? What are the side effects of it? Like, what is it going to do to me? So he gave me a printout. And I looked on this printout, and the first 4 side effects were anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, panic attacks. And I looked at the doctor and I said, hey, doc, why are you giving me a medication that has the exact same 4 things that I just overcame? Well, you haven't displayed those symptoms since you've been here. I said, stop the bus. Hold on a second. You don't even know who I am, man. I said, you don't even know what my name is. And he looked at the paper and he says, your name is Jason. And I'm like, see, you have no idea. You have no idea what I've been through. You have no idea about the last 3 years of my life, everything that I've gone through, and you're just going to shove medication down my throat? I said, that's ridiculous. And he said, well, you need to take medication or you won't be released. And I said, you know what? Get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. You have no idea about me, and you're just trying to give me medication. Get away. And he kept saying medication, and I said, you know what? There's a security guard in the corner. His name is Alfred, old Bobby from the UK. And I said, Alfred, please stand up. I don't want to talk to this doctor anymore. He's trying to give me medication. He has no idea about anything about my life. I'm done with him. And I went back to my room. 12 hours later, I had a third psychiatrist come see me. He gave me another piece of paper. This paper committed me for 14 days for being a danger to that second doctor, for standing up for me and telling that doctor I'm not going to take that medication that's going to give me those same side effects that I just had. I was committed for 14 days. Wow. So, what am I going to do? Kind of just sat there. Yeah, there's not much you can do. There's a TV inside of a metal box that you can watch. You have to ask for the remote. You have to ask for a glass of water. You get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but other than that, you got to ask for everything. It was a tough spot to be in. No one had even had a conversation with me by this point. Nobody. Nobody had sat down and said, hey, Jay, what's up? Why are you here? Tell me about things. Nobody. And that didn't happen for 8 days. So on December the 30th, Christmas is gone. Family's at home. Wife, 3 daughters. I'm in there waiting for someone to talk to. It's Christmas time. Short-staffed. Not a lot of people around. I get it. But it took 8 days for a doctor to sit down and have a conversation with me. During that conversation, the doctor said, "Hey, you've got bipolar. You need to take Seroquel." And I said, "Okay, talk to me, doc. What's Seroquel?" So he gave me a rundown of what it was. It's a medication to control bipolar, and I don't have to be weaned off of this medication. So we chit-chatted for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so. And I said, "You know what? Cool, doc. I trust you. You took the time to sit down and talk to me. I'll take that medication." And he said, "You know what I'm going to do, Jay? I'm going to cancel your form. On December the 30th today, I'm going to make you a voluntary patient. And over the next few days, you'll likely be released as long as everything goes well." So I'm like, "Cool. Thank you very much for talking to me." So away he goes. That night I take my medication, and it floored me. I had the worst nightmares in my entire life. I know that the windows at this hospital have 3 panes because I looked at them, because I was going to jump through them head first. But I would have bounced off, so I didn't. But that's what it made me want to do. That's the way that it made me think. And it continued. And I walked down the hall to the nurse's station and I said, "Hey, this is what I'm going through." And the night nurse said, "Hey, go back to sleep." And I said, "What? I'm having nightmares, guy." Like, he said, "Just go back to sleep." And I'm like, "Okay." All right. So I stay up that entire night, and 7 a.m. the next nurse comes in. So I sit down with this nurse and I said, "Hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what the medication has done to me." And she says, "Okay, we need to stop the medication until you see an on-call doctor." And I said, "Good, thank you," because it was terrible. And I said to her, "Hey, by the way, doctor yesterday said he was going to cancel my form, and I'd like to get my clothes back so I can get out of these jammies and maybe go outside for a smoke or grab a coffee or something." She's like, "Yep, no problem. I'll just go check the paperwork, get your stuff. Might take me a little while, blah, blah, blah." Cool. So the nurse comes back and says, "There's no release papers. No one has canceled your form." And I said, "No, it was Dr. So-and-so." She said, "Well, he's not here, and we don't have that form. So what?" I said, "I'm stuck." She said, "Well, and until you actually have a doctor come to see you, yeah." And I was like, "Oh my God, wow." So this was December the 31st, and it was the long weekend leading into New Year's Day. So I assumed the doctor would be off until Tuesday, being the weekend. He was not on call for that weekend, so I stayed the weekend. Not that I had a choice. And then Tuesday comes around, and I say to the nurse, "Hey, doctor should be back today. Can you please check with them, get that paperwork so I can get my clothes back and go home soon?" She's like, "Yep, yep, no problem." So phone calls are made, and there's no answer. And at the end of the day, around 3:30, the nurse comes back and says to me, "I have bad news. That doctor's on vacation for the next 11 days." And that was tough. Like, wow. And I said, "So what does that mean?" She says, "Well, until you're seen by a doctor and cleared by a doctor, you can't go home." And I said, "This is ridiculous. Like, I've taken that medication you asked me to take. It floored me. I haven't seen an on-call doctor. I would like to see an on-call doctor. Can I see an on-call doctor, please?" So a few days later, I had the head of psychiatry come and see me. And he sits down in the room, and I had my wife print off my Facebook post from October the 17th of last year that I put up, which basically goes through everything that I've gone through to give him a little bit of education. I said, "Hey, doc, read this. This will give you an idea of what I've been dealing with." And we sat down, and the doctor asked about my family history. And I said, "Oh, okay, well, my grandfather committed suicide. My grandmother died of alcohol poisoning. My mother died of a respiratory disease. And my cousin, he tried to commit suicide probably 50 times, 100 times in his life. And I said, you know what, he's probably been here before. And the doc said, oh, what's his name? And I said, oh, it's Darcy Taylor. And he's like, oh, I know him. I'll see you later. Away he went. And on his way out, the doctor looks at my 16 pages and says, wow, I thought this was only going to be one page. And walked out. And I was beside myself. I didn't know what to do. So I sat there and went, what was that all about? And I came to realize, yeah, you know what? He just diagnosed me. So again, admitting doctor. The doctor I'd told to go away that wanted to give me Latuda. Third doctor who committed me for 14 additional days. And now the fourth doctor, who's the head of psychiatry, all diagnosing me with bipolar and telling me I need to take medication. I did not want to take this medication. I did not need to take this medication. I knew how I felt. I knew that when I did take that medication, the result was me wanting to kill myself. I know my body. I'm not going to be forced to do anything against my will. So, there I am. Committed for 14 days. Doctor's on holidays. No chance of parole in sight. So there's a social worker inside of the hospital, and I went to talk to her and explain my situation to her. And I said, "What can I do? Please, I don't think I belong in here. Like I'm not taking the medication. I'm not acting erratic. I'm not being violent. I'm talking to everybody. I'm sociable. I'm helping out. Like you can see that my behavior is not warranted of my stay here." And she said, "Well, you can have a tribunal." And I said, "A tribunal? What does that mean?" She says, "Well, you basically have a meeting and you talk to the doctor and I'll be there and you can bring a family member along and we have a discussion and whatnot." I'm like, cool, all right, that sounds good. So we set this up, and this is, I believe, on the 18th or the 19th day. And this is before the doctor gets back off of his holidays. And the thing that sticks in my mind was a conversation that came up where on December the 11th, when I was in my state of hypomania, I went outside in my North Face jacket on with a pair of shorts and sandals and a t-shirt on and got in the van and went for a drive. And the doctor that was presiding over this was the doctor that gave me the Form 3 committing me for 14 days. And when this story came up about what I was wearing on December the 11th, the doctor was writing everything down. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then he hands me a piece of paper. Now I'm committed for 30 more days. There's 3 reasons why you can be committed under the Mental Health Act: being a danger to yourself, being a danger to others, and not being able to care for yourself. This time I was committed because I was not able to care for myself. So I stood up and I walked out of the room. I didn't know what to say. Went back to my room, and the nurse came in and said, "Hey Jay, I'm sorry about this. Blah, blah, blah." And I said, what are you guys doing for me? Like, I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Do you understand that? Like, why is no one dealing with that? And her answer was, "We don't have the resources to deal with that here." Day 19. Wow. The doctor who came to see me on December the 30th returned to work. And he came into my room that day and he started to yell at me. He started to yell at me saying, "You did not follow doctor's orders. You were not taking your medication. Until you take this medication, you will not be released." And I was trying to tell him, "Doc, I tried the medication. I wanted to kill myself. Like, it wasn't working for me." Like, but he wouldn't let me get any of that out. he walked in, and now I was deflated. I was totally helpless. I was like, no one is listening. No one is. Please, God, what's going on here? So the next day, that same doctor came back into my room and he said, Jay, I have to apologize to you for two things. He said the first thing is that back on December the 30th, I didn't cancel your form. He said, I remember driving home that night and thinking, oh, I don't think I canceled Jason's form. But he didn't do anything about it. And the second thing he said was, I want to apologize to you for yesterday. When I came into your room and I didn't listen to you, I now realize that you did try that medication and that it had really bad effects on you, and you're waiting to see an on-call doctor. And if your behavior continues to be like it has been over the next few days, you'll likely be released. So, wow, finally someone has finally connected some dots and come to their senses. So 24 hours later, I'm released. 21 days. 21 days. 21 days locked up in the psychiatric unit.